Boy, come over here.
What's up, Dad?
You want the cheeseburger?
Yeah, sure.
Alright, you got a movie picked out for tonight?
Yeah, can we watch Sallow again?
You been watching that Kino Corner?
Yeah.
Boy, I told you. That man and that YouTube will rot your mind. You understand?
Yeah, it's Dad.
Tonight we're watching something could be on TCM. You know what that is?
No, you have failed me as a father.
That I did, son. I mean, do you even know who Clint Eastwood or John Wayne? You don't know John Wayne?
No.
Do you find yourself in this kind of predicament with your father, where it's Father's Day and you got to pick the movie and you don't know what movie he wants to watch? Well, that's why I'm here, sweaty in the hot Texas summer and all, right next to this fire right here that's not helping. I am here to showcase 10 movies that either your father already loves and will definitely want to watch again, or movies that your father might come to love. So, I hope you enjoy the video. Are you and your dad trying to watch one of your favorite movies, but it's not available on Netflix in your country, but you know for a fact that it's on Netflix in another country? Well, that's what Atlas VPN is for. With Atlas VPN, you can access so many more movies online, ensuring that your movie nights are always great. That is, unless the person picking the movie has bad taste. We all know that guy. I want to thank Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video and thus allowing me to share with all of you my love for dad movies. Atlas VPN is a virtual private network that encrypts your data and hides your location, protecting your data from the bad guys. Atlas VPN is supported on iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, and Linux, so you can protect all your devices. And right now, Atlas VPN is running a major discount. It means you can get it for just $1.83 a month plus 3 months extra before the summer deal expires. With over 750 servers in a multitude of countries, the possibilities for online content are as big as you can get. Did I mention that there's a major discount on Atlas VPN right now, where it only costs $1.83 a month? I mean, that's less than a lot of water bottles now. So click the link in the video description below to take advantage of the offer. Think of all the cool dad movies that this is gonna allow you to watch. Steve McQueen, Car Chase, San Francisco When It Was Beautiful. I think that's enough to convince your dad to watch Bullitt. Actually, I don't think you even need to convince your dad. Suggest the title and he'll probably just say, yep, let's watch that. I know that my dad had a tape of Bullitt back in the late 70s or early 80s. I think it might have been a Betamax tape, but I'm not sure. He would tell me how he and his cousin would watch the famous car chase scene every single day. I think that's reason enough for me to include this classic on my list. For all you Zoomers out there, Steve McQueen was one of the coolest Hollywood actors in the 60s and 70s. In terms of sheer coolness, he was up there with Clint Eastwood and Paul Newman. Don't believe me? Watch Bullitt, and then you'll see. So, what is Bullitt? Well, it's a crime drama / police procedural / action film in which Walter Chalmers, an ambitious politician, charges Detective Lieutenant Frank Bullitt with protecting a key witness, Johnny Ross. Chalmers secured Ross and plans to have him testify against the organization, which is just what they call the Chicago mob. A witness like that would break up the mob and cause Chalmers' career to skyrocket. There's just one catch. The mob doesn't want him talking, and the chances of Ross surviving the weekend are slim, considering his hotel room number adds up to 13. 2 hitmen show up at the hotel. They injure the cop on duty and almost kill Ross. Now Bullitt's got Chalmers breathing down his neck, threatening to ruin his career if Bullitt doesn't provide him a witness come Monday. To save his own skin and get the job done, Bullitt conducts the job as he sees fit. He doesn't take orders from Chalmers. To the politician, Bullitt is effectively a rogue cop. The difference is, Bullitt knows what he's doing, and Chalmers doesn't. Over the course of a couple days, Bullitt sets out to find the hitmen who shot Ross, uncover information on the organization, and render justice to all the criminals involved. In doing so, we get one of the coolest car chases from that era, or from any era. It's a long chase through San Francisco between Bullitt and the hitmen. They drift and speed through the hilly San Francisco streets, losing plenty of hubcaps in the process. What makes this car chase scene and all the other action scenes in the film work so well is that they feel grounded. Everything feels like it could be real, that it could happen in real life. It never gets so over the top as to ruin its sense of believability. It's got a great cinematic style to it that plays with the image but also lends some scenes to feeling documentary-ish. The result is that the director, Peter Yates, completely immerses us into his world and we can't look away from it until the credits roll. Steve McQueen's stoic yet charismatic performance as the titular detective, though, is what elevates this film from good to great. This is the easiest movie for me to recommend to watch with your dad, because Bullitt is basically Drive for our father's generation. Okay, now time for another San Francisco set movie, except this isn't the 60s anymore, it's the 90s. The tech scene is beginning to bloom, and the dot-com crash is yet to happen, so everyone is riding high on all the advancements in computer technology and especially hacking. Sneakers holds a special place in my heart. My dad absolutely loves this film, and when I was going through my family's old unlabeled VHS tapes, I found that one of the tapes was a recording of Sneakers from TV. We watched it all the time together, and it's just one of those comfort movies that might be a bit cheesy in parts, but it never gets old for me. Also, when I reached out to some of the certified dads in my audience about what films to cover here, almost all of them told me to cover Sneakers. So here you go. Sneakers boasts an all-star cast. Robert Redford plays as the protagonist Martin, but other greats like River Phoenix, Ben Kingsley, Dan Aykroyd, Sidney Poitier, Mary McDonnell, Stephen Tobolowsky, and James Earl Jones make up much of the supporting cast. It's worth a watch for these names alone. But what's the story? In the late 60s, Martin leads a secret team of hackers at his college. They are ideologues who are Marxist in nature, and they commit a litany of cybercrimes to take money from people who they see as bad and give it to people they see as good. They fancy themselves as digital Robin Hoods. But the police raid their headquarters, arresting everyone except Martin, as he had just left to grab pizza. Still, he's a wanted man for his federal crimes. Fast forward to the 90s, and Martin is the head of a crack group of hackers and ex-cons who breach company security systems for a living. He's living under an alias now, afraid that his past might catch up to him. And that it does. Two men claiming to work for the NSA approach Martin and tell him that they want to hire him to get information on a cryptography expert who they believe might be funded by Russia. He doesn't have a choice. He either takes the job and gets his record cleared, or he declines and spends the rest of his life in prison. The film takes a whole lot of wild twists and turns, always keeping you on your feet and always making the film just feel exciting. Its attention to detail draws entertainment out of scenes that, on paper, might feel mundane. The filmmakers somehow make Robert Redford describe what a road sounds like gripping. It's incredible.
There was a recurring sound.
Like seams in the concrete.
Is everyone who they say they are? Who can you trust? Too many secrets, or no more secrets? Sneakers builds its tension so well, and the editing during the climactic sequence is just perfect. You'll be on the edge of your seat the whole time as they execute their intricate and highly dangerous plan. But what also makes Sneakers such an enjoyable viewing is its cast of characters and its sense of humor. Sidney Poitier as the ex-CIA agent Kreese serves as a great straight man for the band of misfits.
Now what are you saying? The CIA caused the Managua earthquake?
Well, I can't prove it, but...
Redford puts on his usual charms, which is usually at least pretty good. I personally love the character of Werner Brandes, played by Stephen Tobolowsky. He's a socially awkward toy inventor who delivers some of the funniest innuendo in the movie.
I'll join you as soon as I'm through pounding these breasts.
But the greatest contribution to Sneakers is, without a doubt, Dan Aykroyd. His character mother is a conspiracy theorist who has gone deep, and I mean deep, down the rabbit hole. Every line he said had me laughing.
Here, maybe this might help. An old buddy of mine who was in Desert Storm sent it to me. Of course, he was on the other side.
I like to think that none of this was scripted and that Dan Aykroyd was just talking as himself and not as his character.
Yeah, the astronauts broadcast around the world from a soundstage at Norton Air Force Base in San Bernardino, California. So, worked for them. Shouldn't give us too many problems.
Sneakers is a fun and easy-to-watch neo-noir that you and your dad will most likely enjoy. It's a certified dad classic. Do you like swashbuckling action, dudes being dudes, exciting adventure, classical music, and grueling amputations? Well, aside from that last one, of course you do. If you don't, then, man, I don't know what to tell you. In 2003, the legendary Australian film director Peter Weir released yet another one of his masterpieces, Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World. It was a sort of loose adaptation of some of the books in the Aubrey Maturin series. The film opens with fog on the sea. All is quiet for the sailors on the HMS Surprise. Midshipman Holmes spots a ship in the fog. No one else can see it, but he swears that it's there. They prepare for battle, fearing the worst, and the worst is what they get. A French privateer vessel bursts out of the fog. The ship is bigger, more powerful, and faster than theirs. They quickly realize that this is a battle they cannot win. They flee the battle, but Captain Jack Aubrey won't accept this loss. No, That attack only pissed him off, and he'll hunt down the Acheron to the far side of the world if that's what it takes.
He said it! He said it!
They follow the Acheron all the way down the Brazilian coast and around Cape Horn. Then, they make their way up to the Galapagos Islands and into the tropical Pacific Ocean. They will not return to England without their trophy. The reason I love this film isn't just because of the action, although the action is great, but Ware does a splendid job in fleshing out his characters and recreating 19th century naval life on screen. It shows the sailors at work, the sailors practicing firing the cannons, the sailors drinking, singing, plotting against one another, and more. One of the more interesting subplots with the sailors is how they believe Hallam is a Jonah, or a man who has earned God's wrath, and so now God is taking his anger out on the entire ship. As for the officers, Ware allows us to view their dinners and the classical music sessions between Jack and Stephen. It's a completely immersive experience, and over the course of the film's 2 hours and 18-minute runtime, we get to know and love so many of the characters on the ship. Plus, when they come upon new lands, we feel like we're also discovering these places for the first time with them. We experience the highs, the lows, and the doldrums with all these men, and, by the end, we cheer for their victory and mourn the men we lost. Ware didn't make a movie in which we watch someone's adventure. He made a film in which we go on a grand adventure with them. I mean, never would I have thought that I would cheer at Russell Crowe proclaiming that his ship was England.
And though we be on the far side of the world, this ship is our home. This ship is England.
The sense of scale and immersion blows just about every big-budget Hollywood film from the last 15 years out of the water. Ware's commitment to practical effects, which included filming an actual frigate sailing around the dangerous waters of Cape Horn, ensure that this movie won't age badly. 20 years later, it's just as good-looking as it was upon its release. You can't say the same for most of the CGI crapfests that have come out recently. Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World was supposed to be the first installment in a long-running franchise, but the box office numbers, though not terrible, weren't good enough for the studio to pursue a sequel. It still works excellently as a standalone movie, but just imagine an alternate universe where we had a huge Master and Commander franchise. I had the pleasure of seeing Ethan Hawke present the life and times of Judge Roy Bean at the Austin Film Society earlier this year. I didn't know anything about this movie, and had frankly never heard of it. I got a ticket because I wanted to see a Q&A with Ethan Hawke, and I gotta say, the man has good taste. I put this film on my list of dad movies right after watching it, but I cemented its placement in this video after visiting my parents a few weeks ago. I casually brought up Judge Roy Bean to my dad, and he started quoting the film to me, saying how he thought it was one of the funniest movies he had ever seen, and that he loved to watch it with his dad. The film is a trifecta of some of the greatest talents that Hollywood has ever produced: John Milius, John Huston, and Paul Newman. Now, I know that Huston changed Milius' script quite a lot and that Milius wasn't too happy with it, but I still think it's a great film. It's a comedy western that operates in an episodic nature. A drifter, Roy Bean, pulls up to a saloon in the middle of nowhere. There are wanted posters with his face on them, and the dysgenic folk in the bar want that money. Naturally, a shootout occurs and Roy kills everyone there. A priest, played by Anthony Perkins, happens upon the bloodshed, which is when Roy, a man who doesn't know anything about the law, declares himself a judge and asks for Perkins' assistance in burying the dead. That is the genesis of Judge Roy Bean. Soon after, he employs a gang of outlaws as his deputies, and they become the law of the land, although they still act much more like criminals than like lawmen. The film follows the growth of the town, with new characters entering into the story as the town gets bigger and bigger. The graveyard, though, arguably grows faster than the town grows, but that's only because Roy just really enjoys hanging perpetrators of the law. Among the additions to the town are traveling prostitutes who Roy marries off to his deputies so that he might set the loose women down a righteous path. But he comes to regret this as the women nag their new husbands, who then cause headaches for Roy. My favorite addition to the town was Bruno the bear, dropped off by a fur trapper who was played by Huston himself. You would think that the bear would cause chaos in the town, but instead, he becomes Roy's best friend, and the bromance between Roy and Bruno the bear is top tier. As the town grows, society as a whole changes, and the movie shows the decline of the Wild West and the rise of industrial society. It's a film that, although is rife with humor, examines what the West was and what it is to us now. In a sense, it's a parody. The film does have many jabs to other westerns, but above all, Judge Roy Bean is a parody of the Western hero. He's a stoic man who is too macho for his own good. He believes in hanging every criminal, or at least people he deems to be criminals, and he can't change with the times. One of the major through lines in the film concerns his celebrity crush on Lily Langtry, a socialite and famous performer. He decorates his bar, which also serves as his sheriff's office, with her icons, effectively turning the town's building of law and order into a shrine to her. He yearns after what he can't have, which causes him to not see what he does have. I won't spoil anything, but there's a heartbreaking scene in which we know that he just wants to tell his wife that he loves her, but he can't say the words. He doesn't know how. Even if the film is a comedy or a parody or whatever, it still manages to be moving and emotional. Watching this film is like watching the death of an era, the death of an old version of America that will never get back. The film was not commercially or critically successful, but Paul Newman maintained that the character of Judge Roy Bean was his favorite character that he ever played. Maybe now, 51 years later, we can give the film another shot and give it the respect it deserves. My dad used to gush about this little indie film from the 80s that he always liked, this movie called Blood Simple. I don't think that he knew that it was the Coen brothers' first feature film until I looked into the movie. But when he found out, he told me, "Oh yeah, that explains why it's so good." I also want to get you guys to watch this film because not only is it a great thriller, it's an Austin movie, and I've got to shill our local films, even if the Coen brothers are from Minnesota. How much bloodshed can result from an affair? Well, according to this film, a lot. Ray and Abby are both in love, but there's an issue. They're married to other people. Ray's not as connected to his wife, but Abby's husband is a jealous man. He's also the owner of a bar, so you know he runs in some seedy circles. Her husband Marty suspects that they're together, so he hires a private detective to discover the truth. The PI obtains photographs of them in bed together, but that doesn't bring Marty any closure. No, he wants them dead. He returns to the PI and offers him $10,000 to whack the lovebirds. Everything must be done with discretion. Nothing should be traced back to him. The bodies should be burned. But the PI has his own agenda, a devilish one at that. What follows is an avalanche of murder, deceit, and paranoia. It's worth a watch just to see how the Coen brothers had it even way back in '84. Many of their trademarks are here, from regular people turning into immoral criminals to their signature dark sense of humor. What I really love about this movie is just the way it looks. The filmmakers soak the nightclub scenes in neon, while using beautiful, contrasty lighting for many of the nighttime shots. There's one particularly great scene in which bullets penetrate a wall and the light pours out from the bullet holes. It might not be realistic, but it sure looks cool. Oh, and there's a shot in here straight out of The Evil Dead. The camera flies across the grass and straight into Frances McDormand's face. That is most definitely a result of Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell helping out on the movie. If you like the movie and you want to make movies, or if you just want to make movies, I urge you to check out the video in which the cinematographer Barry Sonnenfeld and the Coen brothers break down the film. They go into great detail on how they achieved many of the shots in the movie, and to be quite honest, I think I learned more from this hour or so long video than I learned in years of studying film in school. If you and your dad want to watch something that falls more into the category of horror, then look no further than Bill Paxton's feature directorial debut, Frailty. It opens on a dark night at the FBI offices in Dallas. A strange man arrives, claiming to know who the infamous God's Hand killer is. Agent Doyle, the man in charge of the case, figures he should talk to this man, even if the guy might just be crazy. The mysterious man claims to be a certain Fenton Meeks, played by Matthew McConaughey. Fenton informs Doyle that his brother Adam Meeks is the killer they've been looking for. Doyle doesn't believe him, so Fenton tells him the story of how the God's Hand killer came to be, starting his story all the way back in 1979. Fenton and Adam live happy Christian lives in small-town Texas. Their father, played by Bill Paxton, raises them as a single dad. He's a jovial, calm, and all-around nice guy who supports his sons by working at a garage. It might not be an ideal life, but it's pretty darn close. However, one night, their dad receives a vision from God. The end is near and the battle between good and evil has begun. Demons roam the earth, and God has chosen the Meeks family to fight these demons. He will bring them weapons and send them lists of demons that they must destroy. Their mission is of the utmost importance. The dad finds an axe and a lead pipe. Those are to be his heavenly weapons. He then receives a list of the first demons he must kill. When he captures his victims, he can see their sins by touching their skin. He convulses in awe and terror, witnessing all the evils these alleged demons committed. But he doesn't do it alone. He can't do it alone. His young sons are his soldiers. The youngest son, Adam, believes everything, but the older brother, Fenton, only believes that his father is a crazy serial killer. He tries to push back against his dad, but that only brings upon him his dad's wrath and the wrath of God. Frailty isn't just a typical serial killer or supernatural horror movie. Paxton doesn't run with the idea that his character was crazy the whole time. He gives us enough evidence to think that he's lost his mind, but also enough evidence to make us think that he really is doing God's will. Further, he ups the creepiness factor with his performance. Never is he some maniac or creep. He's always just a regular dad who's trying to do what he believes is best for his kids. He doesn't lament the people he kills, as who would be shaken up by killing a demon? I know I never feel guilty after playing Doom. So, the film always has you guessing. Are they actually good guys, or are they evil? Who should we believe? Are their victims really demons? Are the dad's visions about their sins real, or is he merely justifying his own actions? There's something else that's so sinister and unsettling about this film. It's the fact that Paxton shows us serial killing as a family affair. That just gets under my skin. Don't watch this film with your dad if you guys have a bad relationship. But if your relationship is at least pretty decent, then this could be a fun little horror movie to watch. I want to finally add that my boss asked me to add this film to the list. So, if you're watching this, Aaron, I hope you're happy. Considering that Zoller's most recent film, Dragged Across Concrete, was the #1 film on Netflix for a while this year, your dad has probably seen it. So I want to suggest Zoller's sophomore movie, Brawl in Cell Block 99. It's a brutal prison exploitation film that stars Vince Vaughn as a hulking, menacing man who will go to any lengths to save his family, even if it means descending into the depths of hell. Vaughn plays as Bradley Thomas, a down-on-his-luck tow truck driver and mechanic. The film opens with him experiencing what we can call a very bad day. First, his boss lays him off, and then he returns home to find out that his wife has been cheating on him for 3 months. It's a total nightmare, but compared to the rest of the film, it's a nice dream. That bad day leads to one of the coolest scenes I've seen in recent years. A scene in which Bradley destroys a car with his bare hands. It showcases just how much of a beast he is. After cooling down from destroying one of their cars, he and his wife decide to start anew. They both just want a happy marriage and a happy family. But with him out of a job, and considering that her substitute teaching job doesn't exactly pay the bills, Bradley goes back to drug running to support his family. It works out for a while. His wife becomes pregnant, and they live a relatively stable life. But where's the film in that? His old friend and boss wants to move on to bigger things, and so partners with the cartel, sending Bradley on the first job. But on that first job, the cops raid them, resulting in a gunfight. It's a standoff between the cartel and the cops. Bradley can either run away or join in the fight. He doesn't want the cops to die on account of him, so he takes a stand against the cartel. Even though he saves the policeman, he still faces 7 years in medium security prison, and he expects to serve every last day of his sentence, as drug runners don't normally get out early. It's tough on him at first, but his actions against the cartel come back to haunt him. The cartel kidnaps his wife, and they threaten to kill his unborn child and his wife if he doesn't follow their orders. Their orders? Assassinate Christopher Bridges. There's one problem. Bridges is not in his prison. He's in cell block 99, the deepest depths of Red Leaf maximum security prison. Bradley has to act fast. He's got to become a violent menace to find that man. Brawl in Cell Block 99 is rife with equal doses of brutal violence, high tension, and dark humor. The gore effects harken back to the exploitation films of the 70s and 80s, feeling inspired by the works of people like Fulci. There are also some great supporting performances by legendary actors like Udo Kier, Fred Melamed, and Don Johnson, but I think that this might be one of my favorite performances by Vince Vaughn. His character of Bradley is a generally good-hearted Southern man with a checkered past who's willing to do anything to protect his family. Come on, this is the ultimate dad movie material. Speaking of prisons, that leads us to my next entry in this list, Hal Ashby's 1973 classic, The Last Detail. Before I tell you guys about the story of the film, I'll give you one good reason to watch it. Jack Nicholson in his prime. In this movie, he's a salty and loudmouth sailor named Badass Badusky.
Badusky. Always wanting to call me Badass. Badass.
That should be reason enough to see this, but if you're still not convinced, here's what the film is about. Petty officers Badusky and Mulhall receive orders to transport Private Meadows to the brig in Boston. It's an easy enough job, but it's still a shit detail. They intend to get Meadows up to Boston as soon as possible and then use their per diem to party all the way back down to their base in Virginia. But on the way, they soften to the kid. Meadows, played by Randy Wade before he went crazy, or maybe he was always crazy, who knows, is going to the brig because he failed to steal $40 from a polio charity box. Considering it was the Admiral's wife's pet project, He stuck it to the kid to make an example out of him. Meadows is a kleptomaniac, but he's also a nice guy. The petty officers pity him and determine that they should show him a good time before dropping him off at the brig. They stop in Washington, D.C., New York City, and finally Boston. So the movie is essentially a buddy road trip dramedy. Along the way, they get him drunk, they take him to parties, get him into fights, and of course, they get him laid. They're having fun on the trip, but the story is also about Badusky trying to toughen Meadows up. He teaches him how to be more masculine and how to live and enjoy life. They develop a father-son, or rather mentor-mentee dynamic, that allows for a lot of comedy, but also for some hard-hitting emotional beats. If your dad was in the Navy like mine was, then he's probably seen it, but I'm sure he'd love to see it again. When I watched this film with my father, he particularly laughs at the bits about the military's bureaucratic incompetence.
You haven't left yet.
Sir?
Your orders weren't endorsed when you left, so according to this, you're still in Norfolk.
But if you're gonna watch this movie with your dad, be sure to watch it with a beer.
Ain't old enough for what?
For a beer?
Everybody's old enough for a beer.
While staying on the subject of military and prisons, here's another recommendation for you, Where Eagles Dare. Let's do a dad movie checklist on this one. World War II? Check. Clint Eastwood? Check. Action? Check. World War II? Check. Richard Burton? Check. Espionage? Check. World War II? Check. Explosions? Check. Double crossing and double agents? Check. Did I mention World War II? I asked an older friend of mine if this was indeed a dad movie, to which he replied, "Are you kidding? It's the ultimate dad movie." I then went to Amazon to buy the Blu-ray of it for this video, and saw that it was being sold in a 2-pack with Kelly's Heroes. Let's be real. Real dad films come in 2-packs. The movie is kind of like a proto-Mission Impossible, set in the winter of 1943 or 1944. An MI6 agent, Major Smith, played by Richard Burton, leads a team of British agents to infiltrate a German castle and extract an American Brigadier General George Carnaby, who the Germans had recently captured after shooting down his plane. Smith brings along U.S. Army Ranger Lieutenant Schaefer, played by Clint Eastwood, to assist him on the mission. They parachute into enemy territory in the middle of the night and make their way to the small town adjacent to the fortress. There, they find their contacts, other Allied agents, and set up their complex plan for the extraction. But not is all what it seems. Someone in MI6 is leaking all their plans to the Germans, which is all of us asking, who among them are double agents? Who's working for the Germans? Could there possibly be double agents that the Germans think are theirs, but are actually allies? And let's say that they do happen to get into the castle and get their guy. How will they get out? The only way in and out of the castle is a cable car. Perhaps this is a mission they're doomed to fail. Where Eagles Dare is a film filled with intrigue, yes, but the action will get your heart racing. It's got it all, from high-flying cable car fights to car chases. But most importantly, it's got Clint Eastwood doing his thing, being stoic and sarcastic.
Second-rate punk, huh?
All I could think of on the spur of the moment.
Thanks, that even makes it worse.
I'm not a beer guy, but if you drank an American beer with your dad while watching The Last Detail, maybe consider drinking a nice German lager or Hefeweizen with this one. Last, but certainly not least, is Harakiri, the 1962 masterpiece by Masaki Kobayashi. Okay, maybe your dad hasn't seen this one, but I can't help but include a foreign film. Just be glad I'm not recommending some weird Hungarian art house movie about the lives of peasants. This is a samurai movie, and since dads love westerns, that means that they probably also love samurai films, as the genres are very close. You want to guess what the film Harakiri is about? Yeah, it's about Harakiri, the thing Mishima was obsessed with. A lone, destitute samurai, Sugumo, shows up to Lord I's manor and asks to commit ritual Harakiri in his forecourt so that he can die with honor. He's then told of a samurai who did the same thing the year prior, and upon discovering that his blades were made of bamboo, the men there force the young man to disembowel himself with his blunt bamboo sword. Sugumo listens to this tale and reassures them that his swords are made of metal and that he has every intention to commit the act. They bring him into the forecourt for the ritual, and he requests a specific samurai to be his second, but that warrior is not there. The Lord sends a messenger to the samurai's house, and in the meantime, the protagonist recounts his story, highlighting how he ended up in this situation. Over the course of the film, we realize that this man is on a path of revenge. He's a man with nothing to lose, and he doesn't intend to cross over into the afterlife empty-handed. The aristocrats of this house don't know that Sugumo, the suicidal samurai, is not a man who comes in peace, but rather a ticking time bomb. It's a tale of family, revenge, and honor set in the early 1600s. It was a time of relative peace, but that means it was also a terrible time for the samurai. We see the struggles of Tsugumo and his family, and witness his tragic life, which just makes his revenge plot that much better. The sword fighting in this film is top notch, and the set design, music, and cinematography make it all come together. The Dutch angles and zoom-ins are just so cool. There's a great cinematic feeling to how Kobayashi films the sword fights. It feels like he's showing us something out of a myth. This is most obvious when Tsugumo fights the man in the grass. The way the wind blows through the grass, mixed with the choreography and the camera angles, it all just coalesces into one of the best samurai sword fights ever put onto celluloid. The movie is also paced incredibly well. You might think it's a slow burn at first, but trust me, it's got a big, epic finish that doesn't disappoint. Harakiri might be my favorite samurai film, which is saying a lot because that's one of my favorite genres. I also think that Tatsuo Nakadai should be just as esteemed as Toshiro Mifune. He's not only great as Tsugumo in this, he's also amazing in other classics like The Human Condition and The Sword of Doom. I get it if your dad is like, well son, now why would I read a movie? But if your dad is down for watching a foreign film, this one's a good one. So there are my personal dad film recommendations. If none of these piqued your interest, you could always go for the classics like The Dirty Dozen, The Great Escape, Face Off, or Starship Troopers. Also, you really can't go wrong with Michael Mann or Michael Bay. For all those cinephiles out there who are shocked that I would recommend Michael Bay, I want to remind you that Armageddon is in the Criterion Collection. Have a good Father's Day, and as always, I've been the Kino Corner, and I will see you all in the next video.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor?